So this is a Crestron TSS-7, not to be confused with a TSS-752. And today we're going to show you how to open this up, add the backlight, box it up, and install it. Not near as challenging as you might think. You do not need to use a service provider for this. You simply need to source the product from a service provider. Basically a Juniper partner, not Juniper, sorry, but Crestron partner. I was unable to find these on anything other than through a partner. I could not find these on eBay, I couldn't find them on Alibaba, I couldn't find them anywhere else. The beautiful thing about the about the TSS-7s, as opposed to the 752s and other like devices, is that this product will connect directly to an Exchange server, a hosted Exchange server like Office 365 or Gmail. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're going to show you right from opening the box on. Okay, so there's two boxes in here. One is the light package, which we're going to show you in a minute. The other is the actual unit that we care about. So, crack the seal, pop it open. It's kind of a clever plastic wrap here, so you just have to pop this out, and there you go. Take that. I'm going to recycle this. Okay, so this is the mount bracket. Just put that aside for the moment. These are the mounting screws. You will need these, so keep them aside for the moment. Get rid of the box. Okay, now I like to work on rubberized surfaces so things don't get shocked. So there we go. Pop that there. Let's get the backlight out. Now the model you have may not include this backlight, but if it does, you want to know how to put it on, because it's not hard, but it's not obvious either. So you can see in here, there's a set of screws in here you're going to want to keep, so just put those aside for the moment. And in here, there's really just two things. I'm going to get rid of this box because there's nothing else in there that I care about. And in here, there's the electronic component, which is just USB connected. And there is also the actual backlight. So let's pull this apart and see what we get. There we go. Now the way this is supposed to work, let me just show you, is this is the mounting bracket. And the mounting bracket, you'll notice, has two plastic bumps in here, and they're literally just bumps. They're just sort of spring-loaded bumps. I don't know if you can see if I push on this, and it's pretty hard to see. But you can see that when this gets popped together, that these small plastic bumps will flex and allow this to clip in nicely. Now, so what that means is you take this unit, and the two bumps, side with the two bumps, goes on the larger part here, and you'll see there's two little dimples that match, and one on this side, just like the one on that side. So it's pretty easy. You just snap it together. That's it. So if that was in the wall, oops, upside down, if that was in the wall, that would be great. Then you can just disconnect this by pulling it apart. Not very challenging. Well, it's a little stiff because it's new. There we go. Now, if you have a backlight, it's slightly more challenging. You notice in the backlight, the plastic, that there's a little notch right here, and that's because this is supposed to fold into it. So you fold it into there, and in theory, what you do is, you'll notice this says the word top, and this says this side up, and that is correct. What you do is you pop the two of these in like this. There we go, and then the backlight clips, the backlight connector goes in there. That's the theory. Now, I've done it without this as well. I've done it with these connected just like this before, and it also works just fine. So it's up to you as to how you want to do it, but the official way is to do what I just showed you. So, and that's the way we're going to go ahead and do it. Okay, so let's get this set up. For fun, we're going to set this backlight up now, although we don't have to, but let's just get rid of the spare parts. Okay, got a couple of screwdrivers. Any stock Phillips will do. Now in here, there's going to be two tiny black screws, and once you see it, you're going to go, yeah, that's kind of obvious, but it isn't obvious unless you read all the manuals. So let's get through this. What you do is you take this unit, and it just bolts on, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to screw this down. There we go. Not very tough. And there's a USB port right there, and this just plugs into there. It's always a little stiff the first time. Easy on the jokes, guys. There it is. And then what you do, as I said, is you can pop that on and squeeze this ribbon cable in. This is just friction fit, so it will pull off as well, just as nicely. There we go. So that's a Crestron. You can pull the plastic off if you want. I don't want to at this point, but you could. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a network cable with PoE, power over Ethernet. I'm going to plug it into the Ethernet port, and we will take some time for this to power up. Now when it comes up, there are two ways to get into the configuration. One is to press and hold. When I say the configuration, I mean that the core hardware here, sort of like the BIOS on this, if you want to liken it to a computer, which it really is. It's just sort of a crappy tablet. So anyway, so the official way to get into it is to use 5 fingers, press and hold for once this is finished booting, press and hold for 15 seconds, which is a very long time. However, because we're going to manage this through the web, we don't really need to do that. So I'll show you well, I guess you can call it a shortcut, but it's pretty straightforward. If you press and hold for 15 seconds, you'll get a few settings you don't get through the way I'm going to show you, but we don't really care because we're going to manage the entire thing through a browser. Basically, this is a web server on it, and we'll be on our way once this thing finishes booting. Okay, so obviously we've sped that up because this takes a minute or two and you don't want to sit there for a minute or two watching me. So as I said, I can press and hold this for 15 seconds and we'll get settings, or we can just go to the eye here and it'll give us an IP address, and then I'm just going to web to that IP address. Okay, so let's configure this against my Office 365 account. So, I believe that was the IP. Yep. So once this comes up, you'll see there's a settings tab and a status tab. Default's on the status tab. What you want to do is click the settings tab, and then you can go through and play with all of these. But the very first thing you want to do is under actions on the top, well, actions at the top right-hand corner, what you need to do is probably a firmware update. If you don't have that firmware, what you need to do is get a hold of your vendor and get them to supply it to you. So okay, so that firmware update took the better part of 20 minutes. So, and I was warned by the vendor in Calgary that I sourced these from to not power these off partway through, which goes without saying. If you've ever done any flashing, you're going to bugger up the firmware. But I was told that after the firmware update is done, that they should be unplugged, let them sit for a few seconds, and then power up. Because I'm going to do that after when I move them from the lab that I'm in now, and so I'm not too worried about it. So for the minute, I'm just going to click OK and continue. I've taken a look at the box itself, and the box itself shows that it's up and happy and just the way it was. Okay, so when this comes up, you'll be back to status and settings, and I'm going to click settings, which is where everything is that I care about. And you can see that this expands and contracts. It's a little twisty, so just click on system setup. And here I'm going to type in Ian test crest 1, call it whatever you want. And this is asking for the DNS, so in my case it's going to be 10. Whoops. And you'll notice if you type anything in that shouldn't be there on the right side, it'll tell you can't do anything, so it won't work. So if I try to use a hyphen at the top here, it says, hey, you can't do that. So that's handy. DHCP enabled. I could set it to a static address, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to, let's actually do that. I'll set it to 10.196.33, 255, there we go, 10.196.10. And now I'm just going to go to the setting that you actually care about, which is when I close this, which is schedule. So you're probably going to be most interested to go to applications and say, oh, I don't want to be on a Crestron, I want to be on, let's call it Exchange, or I want to be on Office 365 or Gmail or whatever. No, that is not set through applications, which is a bit odd. It's actually set through schedule. And schedule defaults to Fusion, which is Crestron's back-end server, which I don't want to use. I want to go directly to my Exchange box. I have set this up to function with my on-prem Exchange boxes, but in this case, I'm going to set it up to function with Office 365, so you can see what that is. So here you don't put an Exchange domain in. In the case of Microsoft Office 365 hosted Exchange, that is the address you'll want. We'll actually have it in the blog so you can get to it. For details, if in case this isn't clear enough, you can see the settings here. So this is straight out of one of the Crestron documents. Okay, so that's the core of what you need to get working. Once I click save on this, my calendar will come up on the screen. I'm going to show you that. But let's go through each of these different items on the left side here, and each of the menu items. I'll show you a few changes that I like to make. You may not want to, but at least we'll explain them. So let's go to System Setup and scroll down to Device LCD. The first thing is, I personally do want to enable the screensaver. I don't want these screens on 24 hours a day. And I want them to go to 25, well, they're on 24 hours, but I want them to be very dim. So 25% brightness means they're just barely there. So that's a happy thing for me. Then let's scroll down Fusion settings. We're not using Fusion, so we don't care. Audio, this is another thing I do want to change. I don't want those things beaking at any point. One of the nice things with the TSS-7s is that you can have it run videos. So if a room is busy, you can have a little animation running or whatever. And that's all lovely. I don't want it. So I just want that turned off. So panel mute is on. Schedule, we already went over, so you know what that is. Reservation. This is pretty much just what you'd expect. If somebody walks up and does a reservation on the panel, you know, do you want it to start early and late? You know, how long do you want it to run? Blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about that, so we're just going to move on. UI settings. This is a personal preference, but I like the vertical setting. What the vertical setting does is set the calendar on the right side. The way it is by default with horizontals, the calendar, the day calendar is along the bottom, and that's fine. But I find it a little cluttered, so I like it vertical. You can feel free to change that. And the theme, there's just light and dark. If you set a logo, it will appear in the bottom right corner. And when I say logo image, what you have to do here is put an address in, a web address. You can't use a local UNC path. It has to be an URL. So like http:// you know, my company website / Crestrons / jimmyjoelogo.jpg. That'll work just fine in there. Okay, I'm not going to set an image there because I'm going to do something a little further on here. So in display, this is something I do want to set. So these backgrounds are just that. On the screen, it will display whatever graphic you tell it to here. And what I want is to display a full screen red when it's busy and green when it's not. Now, the default graphics that are shipped with it are lovely. There's no need to change them, but I've already built a very simple graphic, so I'm going to do that. So all I do is click on Enabled, and again, I put an URL in here, and all that is a red graphic that fades out from right to left. For the sizing, instead of me explaining it, I'll just show it to you. This is the size that it needs to be. So for the TSS-7, it needs to be 1280 by 800. And really simple. And you can use a JPEG or a PNG or a GIF. Okay, so for the sake of expediency, I'm not going to go set these. And that will also show you then what it looks like by default. So let's click get rid of the display here. We'll go to Room. There's nothing in here that I cared about. Then we'll go to Automation. Again, nothing in here I cared about. Work hours. Again, nothing in here I cared about. Everything was fine. Broadcast messages. Yet again, nothing I cared about. Scheduling advanced. Nothing I cared about. Cloud settings. Not using them. Okay, so on configure date and time, I need to set this to mountain time. and because I'm in Calgary and that's Mountain Time, so that's UTC -7, there it is. And I'm going to click Authentication Management. There's nothing here I care about. 802.1, nothing here I care about. Applications, this is what we talked about earlier. If you're running Zoom or Teem or Robin, that's where you would set it. Auto update is defaulted to on, and that's it. Now I'm going to click Save. Okay, so it's going to want to do a reboot. It doesn't always do that. It depends on what settings you change, so we'll click Yes. In particular, it wants to reboot if you've changed the IP address or the host name. Okay, so now I have to connect to the new address. I think I set it to 33. So let's take a look at what it looks like on the screen. Okay, so here it is. It's come up. And you can see I could click the plus here, and I could reserve and make an appointment here. So I've just clicked reserve now. You can see it's changed to red. It's happy. If I wanted to book something over here, I could say, well, I'd like to reserve it from 7:30 until, and I can click on this end time, and I can scroll and say I'd like it to be reserved till 8:30. Reserve now. And you'll see it'll show up in the right hand side here. And I can scroll through the day. I can see what's going on. Yeah, so that's it as far as the setup goes. Now what we're going to do is plug this into a wall. We're going to show you how to mount it. If you've not ordered a mounting kit, you know, to put on glass or whatever else, then what you've got to do is snap this unit into your wall, put 4 screws in, and then this just you carefully, something of note here is that's labeled top and they mean it, put that at the top. And the reason it's marked at the top is because they ship with this little anti-theft bracket, which I don't care about in a corporate office. Nobody's going to steal that. But if I was in a public setting, you know, a conference center or something, you're going to want to put that in. So, and that will clip in and stop people from stealing it, or at least destroying it. In my case, I want it to be easy for me to get to work on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to unplug my cable. I'm going to take this ribbon and I'm going to push it back a bit, and I'm going to push that in. Now you can imagine this being in a wall. So I've put that in the wall. I've got screws in here. You can put the screws in wherever you want, but I've got the screws in here, and I simply pop that in, and bingo, that's done. And that works pretty well. Another option, however, is this flush mounting kit. So let's show you that. So that is this box here, and we're just going to open it up and show you what's in it. Okay, so what's in here is really this, and I'm going to open that up and show you. And there's also this track that you can use to run down your glass wall. So if you have a boardroom with a glass wall and you want people to, you want to hide the cable that's going down to it for the PoE, you can easily fit it down the track and then just squeeze this closed, and you'll see, bingo. If I do that all the way down, it'll stay closed. This is double-sided tape, so it's great for glass. So it's really quite easy. So you can see that channel there, just boom, and you're good. Okay, so that is the flush mounting kit. And let's show you the non-flush mounting kit, which is what I actually purchased it for because, well, it's just what I needed. So I have a few places where the boxes, the electrical boxes that this would go into normally, are not readily accessible. It's a long story, but that's just the way they are. So what I can do is I can take this mount and I can put it on the wall. Then I can screw this in like that into the 4 mounts, put my Cat 6, Cat 5 cable through, and connect, which I'll do right now. Okay, so I'm going to put the cable through here and then pop that in. There it goes. This will start booting up. Now I need to be careful with that ribbon cable, so I'm bending it down and around, and then I'm going to pop that on, and bingo, I would be up. Now when I needed to dismount it, all I would do is pull this off, and this bracket will be screwed into here and will pop right off of this. So I'm going to pop it off manually right now. There we go. And it would just stay in here. So it's actually pretty easy to work with. If you have any questions, please get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca. On the site, we'll have the firmware that we just used, as well as the instruction manuals and the settings for the configuration we went through. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.